Okay, good evening. I'd like to call the meeting of the January 3rd, 2024 of the Maple Run Unified School District Board of Directors to order. It is 6 p.m. Okay, so Happy New Year to all. Item on the agenda is the agenda review. Are there any revisions required for this agenda that anyone has noticed, recognized? Hearing none, the agenda is accepted without objection. Next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
and
and
to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item is the visitor section. Do we have anyone here that wishes to address the board in the room? Seeing none, John, do we have anybody on that?
No one online, no.
Okay, none. So, no visitors. So, we will move on to the consent agenda. So, the consent agenda has the approval of minutes and media packet. Does anything need to be removed for discussion? Hearing none, consent agenda is accepted without objection. Next item is reports to the board. I think we might have student reports tonight.
Yeah, so,
Edward?
oh, sorry, Nova. So today Jacoby and I went and visited Fairfield's, their school, and then we also visited St. Albans City. And we met with their student leadership group and kind of created a relationship with them. And we discussed leadership styles along with kind of our role in reporting to the board and kind of what we do at EFA as a student voice committee. So we just worked on building that relationship.
Yeah, and so really what we did is we take kind of like what you guys talked about doing and going there, but we just do it with the students. So we went there, we performed leadership styles, and we actually asked them a few questions, which was like what's going well, what needs to be improved, and what do students need to be successful at school. And we did this with Fairfield because we had a longer meeting chunk. Fairfield did say that catching up with math because of COVID, a lot of things were set back, as I'm sure we're all aware. And at Fairfield, they said that their teaching staff has done a good job of catching them up in specifics with the math department. They also said that they liked how connected students were with the teachers in the community. And they said that their English department has done a good job adapting them to the new English curriculum that they have chosen. They did say that what could be improved is behavioral issues, getting along with other peers and potential teachers. Some of the students in the group said that they noticed a lot of students, not a lot, but some students aren't completing their work in a timely manner, and they said that maybe that could be improved. They said respect for school and student property. And then for what do they need to be successful at school? They said that they would like teachers to understand that students need support sometimes and providing that. They said for resources, they said a bigger gym, snacks in the classroom, technology, like they said they would like a Cricut, maybe like a maker space, I think, and then just general supplies. They said they would like their front water fountain to work. They said they would like adaptive seating in the classrooms. Their classes are an hour long, which is a long chunk of time for middle school students and elementary. I don't know how long their classes are. They said like a brain break in the middle of the class would work. And then that was pretty much what we got from them. We hope to ask those questions with SATEC and City next time we meet with them. We only have 30 minutes versus an hour. And then we did the compass activity. Are any of you familiar with that?
It kind of outlines your leadership style. Like a West is someone that's kind of before you get to work, you're question oriented, so you ask specifics, you want all the details, you want agenda, whereas like itself, someone that takes more of like an emotional approach to it, trying to ensure that everyone's being heard. So it just kind of outlined like leadership styles within the groups,
Yeah.
and then we discussed like what makes a good leader and just stuff like that.
Yeah, and then we also talked about the ouch protocol, which is like if there's something that's said that might be hurtful or something that's like, maybe you didn't see it as it was like right to say, you say ouch, then it just kind of resets the meeting, and then you ask a follow-up question with that, and then assuming best intent, which is something I think all groups can work on.
What did you call it, the ouch?
Yeah, so it's
The
like,
ouch protocol?
yeah, so like if you like said something that might have been like a stereotype or something that might be offensive, I could be like, ouch, and then like, I would be like, so what was the purpose of that, or like, how did you mean it, and just, you could like stop and take a minute and recognize it before it moves on to become a bigger problem.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for Connor and Jacoby? Hearing none, thank you very much and keep up the good work. Next item on the agenda is old business. All right, so the first item is plan for meeting board goals. And proposal for new board member orientation. You have that as attachment 7A in your packet. I have to look at my packet here because I don't have that one sticking out, excuse me. Sorry about that. So we have the goals that are listed in the first page of that attachment, which appears to be the only page of that attachment. So we need to come up with a proposal for new board members orientation. And I've heard that Jack McCarthy is interested in leading that. Can I turn it over to you, Jack, and just give us a quick explanation?
Sure. Recently, Bill and I attended the VSBA, VSA joint conference at Lake Maury, terrible looking place. And we went to a workshop. One of the workshop sessions was on onboarding new board members. They featured two school districts. The first one, I wasn't that impressed with. The superintendent did all the talking and the board member just only said a few things. But the second presentation was really good. Michael Clark, he's the superintendent over in the islands, and his board member both facilitated their section, and they had a unique finding during their onboarding. The light bulb went off, and they had a real unique message to bring. They had for years done the typical onboarding of board members where you talk about confidentiality and what an executive session is, and it's more preaching to the new board members from the board chair and the superintendent, and kind of giving a predetermined agenda, and the new board members just sit there and just take it all in from the talking heads. But they found, kind of by accident, a board member started to ask a question, and then they thought to themselves, geez, we've never asked the new board members what they wanted to know, what they needed to know. Now, obviously, if you're a new board member, you need to have some of those bullet points where you need to know the presentation. But I'm sure for the new board members here or the newer board members, you've probably heard a bunch of jargon, you've heard some things, and after a couple board meetings, you wonder, what is that? What is this? What does the human resources person do? What does the business manager and the assistant business manager do? What is the discipline policy? What is this? What is that? And that's the big mistake that we often make when we as leaders, like when I was superintendent, I prepared, it made me think of, I've learned a whole lot after I've been a superintendent about what I should have done when I was a superintendent. I don't want to comment. So we need to be sensitive to what new board members want to know. Like, what do you wonder about? And don't be afraid to ask, because there's no such thing as a silly question. And that was really the gist of it. And, Bill, if you want to add to it.
What I would add is so what they did is they asked that question a couple of months in, and then they found that how does this special education system work? And so they had an education, board training around how the special education system works in Grand Isle. And it was an education meeting, so it was a learning meeting. And Mike had talked about how he had a bunch of board members change over across several different boards there. But what started to happen was people that have been members for a couple of years said, hey, I'd like to hear that too. And it was more about how does the school system work? Not so much like the theory behind it, and not being given by the superintendent. It was like, we'll bring in a special ed director. Or what's the day in the life of a principal like? Because I'll tell you, the day in the life of a principal for this year compared to 5 years ago is very different. And so that, for those of us that aren't in school 24/7, and I include myself in that, don't really know what that life is like. And so hearing from people in an education setting where you can have that understanding of the system and the work that's being done is, and they've actually found that brought the board closer together with understanding how the school works. And not to be one to have to know, and it's not a micromanage, it's like when people ask you about how's this work, And so it was surveying the new members for a couple months afterwards, what I heard Mike say. And he said that really, we just tripped into it. And he said it was one of those things that's really helped. And Jack and I both looked at each other and goes, that's an easy thing to do and a really great idea.
Right. So, if you want, if fellow board members can email me questions, I would be glad to consolidate it and send it on to Bill. These are the things that you folks, and I'm finding several times in my life, I have learned things after I did the job that I wish I had known then, like this idea, because I remember doing onboarding with new board members and I was a talking head and the board members just sat there and I talked about all the key things like confidentiality and executive session stuff and open meeting law, and all those kinds of things, but it was my agenda. I never asked, what do you folks wonder about? What do you hear a piece of jargon and you wonder, what does that mean? And who does that? And, that kind of thing. And what I've learned by being on the board here is there are new things in education. So I'm like a new board member too. I mean, just because I was a superintendent, just like Bill said, in 5 years, things are different. So I'm learning along with you guys. We're all learning together. And if Bill's okay with it, if fellow board members can send me your questions, I wonder about this, and it's, Jay McCarthy at Mapleland, blah, 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 it's all the same email that you guys have for I have a personal email, but that's the one we'll use for this. Just send me your questions, and it doesn't have to be tomorrow. It could be tomorrow, but it could be 2 weeks from now. I mean, just continue to send me the stuff and I'll consolidate it, because 3 of you might have the same questions. So I'll kind of consolidate them into the ideas and then send them on to Bill, so that Bill's not having to do this. If that's okay with you, Bill. I will take on that task and send it to the board chair and the superintendent.
So would it make sense to have it like on the agenda at the first meeting of the month, you know, maybe under board announcements, just to have a sentence there saying, don't forget to send Jack,
Sure.
just so people, so it doesn't.
And I can also,
People
at that time, say, here are the questions I've been getting. You know, you know, both of those. Reminder to send me the questions that I can alert the board, the superintendent, the chair, what's going on, so.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jack, for volunteering to do that. Thanks, Bill.
Joe's
for being involved.
hand is up. Just a,
Who's speaking? I'm sorry.
Johanna's hand is up.
Just a quick comment.
Okay, sorry,
Super quick.
go ahead.
When we're talking about this, when we're thinking about the how-tos, I would imagine that a lot of this information would also be great on our school website. And so just for Erin to maybe also be able to be a part of it, so you can just make, demystify some things for, parents and families, guardians. So we can take that, maybe somebody makes a small video or something that just goes on, different links and whatnot. How does special ed work? How do you access it? All of those things, just to be able to, use that information and make it available to everybody.
Sounds good.
That sounds great. Okay, so I think as far as this meeting board goals, we need to embed that information into that board goal, and we'll do that when we'll get to see it. I guess maybe the next meeting or the first meeting in February. Next item on the agenda is the FY25 budget, third draft. It is attachment 7B in your packet. And I am so pleased to turn this over to Martha Gandhi for her interpretation.
Thank you, Nilda.
Sure.
So you have your packet in your agenda. The first page is just a repeat. There's no new information. The only thing that changed on that first page is I added a few more of the little green checks indicating that I've received some more information. There's still some we're waiting on. But that's the only thing that has been updated on the very first page. The second page of the budget information is the information on this third draft. It's showing the expense budget coming in at this date at $76,232,411. That's increased from the last budget presentation by $176,420. And that's just some added information that I received after the last board meeting. There was a couple of missing positions and a piece of equipment that I missed on the first round. I also had a duplicate position in there, so I removed that one. There was some information from the Northwest Technical Center that I had missed on the first pass. And we've gotten some information on the tech semester, 6-semester average, which affects, it's an income piece for the tech center, but it's also an expense piece for the district. So those 4 or 5 items are what make up the difference from the last budget presentation to this one. The education spending has been increased by that $176,000. We are using the same equalized pupil count that we had at the last board meeting, although on Friday, and yes, Friday, 6 o'clock, after you guys had all this packet sent to you, I got some updated information which only increased that equalized pupil count by 0.32 students, so it's minimal. And so that brings us to an education spending for long-term weighted ADM student count of $14,339, which is a 0.29% increase over the prior year, which is actually $29 more than it was the last board meeting this time.
Martha, can I just add something here?
Yes,
There's an attachment 7C, which is also connected to the budget. So we should kind of consider both of those when you're in
yes,
your review.
yes, and I'm assuming that Bill will take on that piece once I get through this.
Yeah.
Perfect. The only other piece on this second page of the summary is the announced tuition rates. That's coming up at another item on the agenda, I believe. And so we'll come back to that, but I've got the proposed rates listed here based on current year rates. The next two pages are the expenditure summaries, and the only thing that has changed are those items that I mentioned previously that consisted of the $176,000. It's in various accounts on these two pages. I can point them out if you really want me to. Unless you want me to, I'm gonna move on. Okay. The revenues, the only thing that has changed on this draft at this point is just the education spending, because that dollar figure changes once we change the expenditure budget figure. That brings us to our tax rate calculation sheet. And with the increased budget by the $176,000, we are showing the education spending per student at the $14,339, which gives us an education tax rate of $1.51, $1.52 rounded. With the 5% cap, that brings us to the $1.4307, which would be the same regardless of where we come in with the budget at this point. The CLA information on this sheet that you received is now outdated. I received today the new tax rate, the new CLAs. And did you make copies of that?
it's in the packet.
It's in the packet.
Oh, it is in the
Yeah,
packet?
it's in the packet electronically. If they have a paper packet, and I saw Susan had it.
So it's attached there.
It should be, it's right at the end.
Okay, so it's the 6th page.
It's the one that has Martha's handwriting on it.
Yeah.
If you're looking, like I see,
Yeah.
Charles is looking at it, and it's,
Okay,
he's got the one with your handwriting.
Okay, this
That
is-
literally was changed today,
yeah, it was literally changed
this afternoon.
this afternoon. So the education tax rate hasn't changed on here compared to the one that was in your packet earlier. The only thing that has changed on this version is the 0.32 of the long-term weighted ADM student count, which is that first figure at the top, the 3,992.99. And then the new common level of appraisal percentages have come in. They have dropped from the previous years. As you can see, the previous year common level of appraisal percentage is on the left-hand side for each of the 3 municipalities, and the new percentage is on the right-hand side.
Yeah, I just want to slow down, have you slow down, Martha. So if you look on the left-hand column where it was last year's information, you'll see each municipality with the percentage. For example, St. Albans City had this current fiscal year is at 71.27, and then on the right-hand side, you want to point out where that is, Martha?
Yeah, it's the gray box, and it's, for St. Albans City, it's now 64.01%. So it went from 71% down to 64%. And as that common level of appraisal percentage decreases, it increases your tax rate. St. Albans Town went from 87.51 down to 79.72. And Fairfield went from 128.5% down to 109.2%. So the very first box, where it says CLA, would be the calculation if we weren't hitting the 5% tax cap. But we are at this point, so you would be looking at the bottom box for the increases in the tax rates for this budget.
So on the actual tax rate, that top box there,
Mhm.
for the CLA, if we didn't use the adjusted tax rate, would that mean that city would be going up by 45%, town by 34, and Fairfield by 32?
Say that again.
So that top, the very top box in the, on the actual tax rate, the CLA,
Yeah,
does that mean,
yes.
okay, so if we didn't have the
If
cap,
we didn't have the cap, city's tax rate would be going up almost 46 cents, yes.
46 cents,
Cents, that's cents,
okay,
yes,
per $100.
yes.
Per $100,000.
$100.
Okay.
And as a refresher, the CLA is completely and totally out of our hands, and the only thing you can do about it is yell at the clouds.
It's out of our hands,
Yes.
it's based on the property values for the 3-year average, yes, yes.
And then, so what you see down at the bottom is, so you'll see a 32-cent tax increase for St. Albans City with the cap tax rate.
Yes,
I'm just pointing this out for everyone to read.
Right.
And understand how this is working. And then Martha made some notes at the bottom about what the percentage increase is in tax
in the
rates.
actual tax rate. Just realizing that these are all still estimates, because the yield may change, most likely will change, and that will change tax rates. It could go up or it could go down, depending on what all the budget's coming in at. And we still don't have the final on the long-term weighted ADM count, which I don't anticipate at this point that that's gonna change much more than where it's at this point. And the local revenues, I still have a few numbers that I'm still trying to track down.
And Martha, since the people that are in the meeting don't have this document in front of them necessarily, can you just read what the tax changes are in each municipality? Just so we're being transparent with everyone.
Yeah, so, after the common level appraisal for St. Albans City, the tax rate, the estimated tax rate at this point would be $2.24 rounded. That would be a 32-cent tax rate increase. St. Albans Town would have a tax rate of $1.79, which is a 24-cent tax rate increase. And Fairfield would be $1.31, which would be a 25-cent tax rate increase at this point.
And this is with the 5% cap, so the only way we would have to bring that numbers down is if we were to bring the budget, the school budget under a 5% increase somehow. Is that
Right.
correct? Okay.
Yes, we would have to cut our budget enough to be below the 5% tax rate cap to actually impact these numbers.
So we'd have to get down, I mean, if it was what was it, 12% increase or something?
Yes,
So we'd have to get that 12% down to 5% just to get, and we would still get the same numbers, and then we would have to slash even further
Even
to
further.
bring those numbers down.
correct, yes.
Charlie, say that one more time.
The budget estimate that we have here increases our budget by 12%. Tax-wise, we're capped at 5%. So to actually bring property taxes down, we have to manage, first of all, to slash from the 12% increase down to 5%, and that would just break even. That would be the same, like no
We
change.
have the same tax rate.
And then from there, we would have to slash even further to get it to actually see an impact in the tax.
So we'd have to slash about 7% from the budget just to get it down to that 5%?
I don't know the percent off the top of my head, but it would be to the tune of probably about $6 million.
And that would just get us.
Before we would get any
and we see any kind of benefit.
Martha, that table, I have a question related to that table, that CLA table.
Yes,
In Enchanted Fairfield, there's something penned in black,
yes.
like 8, or what is that? In reference to?
80 cents?
Oh, I didn't,
I wrote
oh,
on
those
that.
are your.
Those are my notes.
Those are Bill's scribble.
Sorry, that was my, because we literally were working on this together, and I should have taken off that 80 cents and that .364 you can disregard. That's on there. That's something I was doing to create graphs that you have on another sheet behind it. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I apologize. That's
So, time for questions. This is your opportunity.
Yep.
So,
Oh, David.
Sure.
you go first, Dave.
I spent some time going through the budgets, trying to figure out, since I'm a newbie, how we arrived at all of these numbers. And when I get into the salaries on the third draft, it shows like a 6.8% increase. Is that, do we have any control over that, or is that set by the union negotiations with the state?
You want to start?
So the figures that are in this budget were negotiated under the union agreements.
So there's no wiggle room in there then?
Not as far as what we are actually paying based off of, no,
There are the number of positions that you
number of
hire.
positions.
The board can, the way you would reduce that is by reducing positions.
Yeah.
It's not the salary you can adjust, according to the master agreement.
Okay. Because the question I had on it was when I looked at 6.8%, and then I went back to what our inflation rate is, in Vermont in August, September, it was like around 3.7, October was 3.2, but we're going at 6.8. They just had really good negotiators negotiating those contracts.
Well, the point, when we were negotiating, the inflation rate was actually higher than the 6.8%.
Yeah, why?
When we landed, we actually did pretty well compared to that, at that point, the inflation rate.
Do you negotiate those each year?
We're in a 3-year contract for teachers and a 2-year contract for ESP.
But this is the first year
First year for both of those
for
contracts.
both of the, typically it has been every year, yearly.
For the past few years, but then in previous, they were multi-year.
They were multi-years previously, yeah.
Since through the pandemic, it was 1 year.
And then also there's a line item on there that's employee benefits, and I didn't know what that meant.
So employee benefits, not counting the health insurance, because that's on the line all on its own. The other employee benefits include dental insurance, life insurance, long-term disability. It also includes workman's comp and unemployment insurance, as well as professional development funds for teachers to take professional development.
And the professional development is also part of the contract.
And it's also part of the contract, yes.
Well, most of those benefits
Yeah,
are too.
most of the benefits.
All
Almost
those
all those
benefits.
benefits are part of the master agreement as well.
Right. Also, besides that is also the FICA and Medicare costs too,
Okay.
as well as retirement.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think if I'm missing any of them.
You
I
did
think
pretty
that's
well.
most
I
of
think
them.
you got all.
I think I got all of them.
And then if you go down to what the proposed FY25 is, that yellow
Mhm.
section, we
Yes.
talked K to 6, it's 14,500, 7 to 12 is 18,300, and the NCTC is 13,900.
Yes.
Why would there be such a big change, difference between 7 to 12 and the tech center, as an example?
So tuition rates are set based on your actual costs divided by the number of students that actually attended. So we have, at this time of the year, we have to do an announced tuition rate, so that way we can announce to the sending districts how much we're gonna bill for next year, so they can build it into their budgets. At the end of any fiscal year, we have to submit to the state our expenditure and revenues, it's our staff statistical report is what it is. And the state takes that information and they calculate what our actual costs were based on our actual enrollment, and they come back and they say, this is how much you are allowed to charge. And so if we charge more than what we were allowed, we have to refund the money to the sending districts. And or in reverse, if we didn't charge enough, we can bill for the difference. And I hadn't increased the K through 6 rate for many, many years because we don't tuition K through 6 grades, but we still have to have an unannounced tuition rate. And the 7 through 12, it's based on our 7 through 12 costs and the students enrolled. And the Northwest Tech Center is funded slightly differently. There is state aid to the tech center, so they don't pay the full tuition rate, they don't pay the full cost. There's state aid that goes into the tech center revenues that help offset some of the costs. And our tech center is very frugal.
Well, there was that, the other thing I would say is that our tech center does a great job filling their programs.
Yeah.
Knowing other programs and other tech centers, we probably have some of the highest class ratios in our tech center of any of the tech centers in the state of Vermont.
Which
So,
reduces your
which would reduce your per student cost.
cost.
I mean, all of our programs, and I saw Leanne just popped on, that she's been in the background, our tech center director, but she and Lisa and the team up there have been really good about saying, hey, we're running programs with over 10 kids. I've been in plenty of tech centers I've walked through where that's not the case.
Do we have a waiting list on kids that wanna get into the tech center?
I think so. Leanne, is that true? We have a waiting list? Yeah, I see the nod, yes.
Yeah.
And that's, we're limited because of the space that we have.
We are limited because of the space, yep.
This is just completely crazy. But I understand that we have 50% of our students are gonna go to college and the other 50, I kind of had a conversation about this the other
Somewhere in the 50s.
are going to college, the other 50% aren't. So I'm wondering, those kids that were not going to college, is there a better kind of an education that we can give them so that when they come out of high school, they can go right into a job that's going to pay them more? This kind of happens through the tech center. Because as Stu and I chatted, some of these kids are coming out of there and they're making, as mechanics, up at Handy's $45,000 a year, $65,000 a year. When I was out getting my signatures the other day, I ran into a gentleman that runs a parts department down in for the Volkswagen place in Burlington, and he said he has to start kids coming out of the tech center at $65,000.
Yep.
So if we could somehow magically take these kids, the 50%, and move them towards the tech center. I just ran crazy numbers today, but I mean, you got 900 kids in the school, 400 switch from, call it AP education to tech education. That would reduce the budget by a couple $1 million.
We wouldn't really reduce it because it's the in and out for us, and Martha can explain that some more on how that operates.
Yeah. So the tech center is a self-contained budget, and the students that attend the tech center that are our resident students, so they reside in the city, town, and Fairfield, MRUSD pays the tech center for those students, pays this tuition rate.
Mhm.
So that cost is embedded in the 76 million that we've got up here. Right now, that amount for FY '25 is about $1.6 million. So if we increase our number of students attending the tech center, we're also going to increase our expense in the expense budget. And there's no space for that many students to attend the tech center at this point.
Well, I agree that.
Yeah.
I think this is more of a,
Yeah.
I think it's more theoretical.
Theoretical.
Yes.
They're going.
Yeah.
So there's also costs for the high school because they don't get all their education at the tech center. So there's costs that the high school incurs, MBU does as well as BFA. And whether it's we could talk, some tech centers in Vermont are full day and some are part day, the way ours is. And so there are some costs there that go with that. For us, it's really an in and out the way it works in our budget. I agree with you in theory, like, I'd like to see more kids taking advantage of, the technical education. I can think of
Absolutely.
more and more kids that, the story you just said about someone you bumped into and told you they're starting kids at 65,000, I hear that. Leanne will tell you plenty of those stories.
Yeah.
If we give her the mic right now, because she's got plenty of them, that's happening for kids. And it's doing great things. I don't see it so much as a budget saver, as more of an opportunity for kids.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, is there a better education that we can offer them? Because they're coming in, to me, the kids that aren't going to college are kind of taking like a liberal arts type of a course versus the kids that are going to the tech center. I went to Montana College, and when I graduated, every kid that graduated, we had at least 2 job offers. My friends that went to UVM, that took the liberal arts, they were struggling to find jobs.
Yeah. So I think that's something we could talk about at another board meeting for that. It's not that piece of the budget.
Jill,
Yeah.
I just have a clarifying question. Martha, when you say the in and out, I'm not familiar necessarily with that phrase. My question is, so we called it tuition. So that is students that come from maybe MVU and come into our tech program. And it's also money that MRUSD pays. Okay, so students who are we paying for them twice?
No,
Okay, so my question was just like, you know, because you've got 7 through 12, so students who are not taking, who are not in NCTC, and
so just to be clear,
Yeah.
NCTC is a half-day program.
I understand that.
And so the 9 through 12 grade students are also attending BFA as well.
Right,
Okay.
and they're, right, but some of them are taking a full class load and some of them are taking a half class load, right?
Yeah.
So my question is, the students who are attending NCTC,
Yeah.
are we paying, well, it's not, is the cost for people, 18.3 and 13.9?
It's, well, you can't really put the, actually, it's hard to explain because it's not actually that way. We are actually spending about 14,339 per weighted student. We don't have a actual per student cost.
I understand that, yeah. I was trying to better understand when you said in and out. I'm assuming that that's, what you're referring to is answering my question. I just don't understand that explanation.
Can I take a
Yeah,
shot?
please take a shot.
So for the tuition piece that's on here is something that we have to do by statute
Sure.
right now.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So for an MBU student to come down here, so it takes a double period right now at BFA, and they have it set up. So kids are in there for a double period to take one tech center program.
Yeah.
But it's not like, hey, we take that part of a single BFA's tuition. What we say is to the tech center, develop your budget. And then we know what the revenue is by the estimated, it's called the 6 semester average, that's gonna come for MBU. We develop so that takes care of, I don't know, I'm gonna make up some crazy fraction here. We'll just call it a 1/5 of the overall tech center budget. The rest of it comes from Maple Run. So we don't say like, hey, but what's shown on as the budget is that there's an expenditure of $1.6 million to the tech center, and then on the revenue budget, you would see there's 1.6 million coming in from Maple Run, and then the added, and I want to actually point to the line, so maybe you can help me there, Martha.
So, okay, it's not quite that clear either.
Yeah.
They just gotta make things a little bit more tricky. So we have to report the 1.6 million in our expense budget. But a share of that is paid,
Pardon me.
okay, is paid directly by the state to the tech center. So even though we set a tuition rate of 13,900.
Yep.
We will actually bill districts, including Maple Run, a figure that is less than that. It will be somewhere around
Because it's getting subsidized by the
$3,000.
state.
The rest of it, the state pays on our behalf directly to the tech center.
Okay.
We have to record that as an expense, and so that's why we're showing a 1.6 million cost on the MRUSD side.
So you're reimbursed.
When you're looking on the revenue piece, under the Northwest Tech Center portion, which is just the bottom section, where it says tuition income, you're only seeing 639,000, because that's only the $3,000 per student that we're receiving. The rest of it is included in the state basic education grant. It's in that number. So it's not a clear, you can't see the 1.6 million here and the 1.6 million here. But that's why we say it's like an in and an out. There's the expense on this side, and then there's the revenue on this side. That's what we mean by it's kind of in and out. We do have, in the end, the tech center does generate more than what it's costing them our USD because of the sending districts.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So, is that complicated enough for everyone? I think one of the things that I got out of all that was that the only impact that we can have on this budget is to reduce staff or reduce teachers or both. So that's just something out there, right? Not something I'm looking to do, just a point that mathematically that would need to happen. Bill, you have that, I think we talked about it a little bit, but that budget communication attachment, and also, we've got to decide what to do, I guess, right now.
So,
Because, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, let me go over some of we talked last time about some graphs that would help you, that you had seen before in
Yeah.
meetings. And so this first one is, if you look at the one way that, especially now with the new weighted student funding formula, the only way that we can compare tax rates year to year without the impact of CLA is what was the education tax rate over time. So we've done this from FY17, which is the last year of Franklin Central, so that's why you see 3 data points. You see Fairfield, St. Albans City, and St. Albans Town, and then it looks like it's Fairfield all the way, but it's the same education tax rate since Maple Run is merged. And you'll see some arrows with boxes there. That first year we had a 10-cent tax rate incentive, so we actually saw $1.38, but the educational tax rate was at $1.48. And the merger incentive went down 2 cents every year for 5 years. And so you can see this current year, we have an educational tax rate of $1.36. And what's proposed in this budget with a cap is $1.43. So we're still within very much what's been our historical average and below, except for St. Albans City, the educational tax rate since the last year prior to the merger. But we wanted to give you that historical. Bree had talked about it at the last meeting. She was looking at that, and just so I wanted to make sure you had this graph of what's been the history of the education tax rate.
So,
Yes.
so the proposed tax rate is 143 this year.
Yeah.
And back in FY19, it was also 143.
Yeah.
Yes.
Went up to 148 in FY22, came back down to 143 last year, 136, 2 years ago, 136, and we're back up to 143. So the educational tax rate really hasn't changed an awful lot. We're not at our highest that we were in FY22.
Yeah, I think you're seeing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's about the same as it was in FY17, so 6 years ago.
Yeah.
7 years ago.
Yes, this is attachment 7C. There you go.
Everyone good with that one? Understand and clarifying on that? And then the next page, which happens to be for the town of Fairfield, I had shown this before with the St. Albans City, but I made one for each municipality that shows what's the actual tax rate. And I hope this is clear. I would love any feedback to make it better. But you'll see the actual tax rate if it has a beige or orange cap on top of it. The actual tax rate is the top of that column. And then Fairfield got reassessed. So it drops to where the top of the blue is, and I wanted to show the gray, which was how the CLA negatively impacted the educational tax rate, because it was over 100%, so it reduced it. And then you would see what it would do for this year. So that's what I'm trying to show there, is that you can see both the history of the education tax rate along with how CLA's affected it. For Fairfield, you can see the big change for this year is just how much CLA has gone down, so it's increased the tax rate. It's still above 100%, so it's still reducing it. On the next page, and I made these, we made these, I shouldn't say I did it, but we made these so the axes have the same scale. So you can, if you want to overlay it, you can from town to town. When I first had this, we thought about putting all 3 municipalities on the same graph, and it was just so much data, it was too confusing. And I've tried to make notes on the top. The next one is St. Albans City. And you can see that the education tax rate, as you saw in the line graph, has stayed relatively in that same range. But especially in the last 2 years, you can see the effect of the CLA and how much of that's contributing to the tax rate, the proposed tax rate. So that last column is this proposed one. And then the last one is town. And you'll see that town, when we first merged, had a CLA that was greater than 100%, so it was decreasing the tax rate. So you see those grays on top, the actual tax rate was the top of the blue. And then in FY22, the CLA became less than 100%, so now the tax rate's the top of the beige or yellow or orange. I will never trust my colors. This is actually a running joke in my house. So, and then you see how that affects this year's. So I wanted to give you something that you all gave me some feedback at the last meeting. It was good to have these graphs to kind of show where the impact on the tax is coming from, or how it's decreasing the tax rate. Charlie, you gave me some great things last meeting about some talking points that were in general English as well and not in educational needs. So at the back of this, we gave you, I will say I had some help from some other districts, but gave you a budget glossary, really for the board, not for the general public. But that, so you had a suggestion of terms, and as we get closer and closer to saying this is our budget, I plan to be working with Aaron so that we can craft some language that is very much the general public. Because I think you were right on point on saying we can't be what's in this glossary, like, you know, what's really attributed to the tax rate increase. It's the evaluation of your house. Is a big piece of it. That's what the CLA is.
I'm sure isn't gonna make people feel
No,
better about their taxes.
no, I don't think it is either, but it's an easier way to explain it than CLA.
Do we have, just for the purpose of planning out a bit for budgets, is the CLA something that comes up like basically on the year that we're planning this, or is there any way of estimating what it might be in like a couple years out?
We haven't been able to get estimates in a couple of years out. That's been the problem, especially these past couple of years with the dramatic increase in property sales. Yeah.
Okay.
But this,
Great question. We should be.
Yes,
but this CLA is based on, it's the running average of FY 23, 24, and 25.
Well, I don't know if it's FY, is it calendar year or is it fiscal year for the common level?
I'd have to go research that exactly, but you've got the,
Yeah.
let's say this, Susan's got the right idea, that
Yes.
it's the past 3 years of
Past
assessed
3 years of
value.
assessed values.
I'm not sure where they end their year, so I
Yeah,
can't tell you
okay.
if it's a calendar year or fiscal year.
Right,
I know that it's somewhere around August, they stop taking the assessments, and they start to churn it into
Yeah.
how it affects this year. John, you're on a planning commission, have you seen anything about that, and you're working in your planning commission that you're a member of?
So recollection is that it's a calendar year, but I don't want to guarantee that.
So in terms of coming up with digestible talking points for this, if we get some, sort of, and probably a big ask, but if we get some sort of way to explain what CLA is to folks, because if someone asks me right now what CLA is, I have an idea in my head that I don't know if I'm being laid out in words.
So what I'm expecting, what I have as a task, Aaron and I actually talked about this yesterday, I believe it was, is that we're gonna start writing bullet points for you.
Yeah.
And that and talking about a budget communication plan, once you set a direction as a board, okay, now we're gonna start writing some pieces for you that you can use either talking with people, or some boards post to Front Porch Forum, some do it through Facebook, just saying, hey, we want you to know about this stuff. Here are the good things the school are doing, here's some of the things that are affecting some of our decisions as we are recommending a budget to the community.
Great,
So, Nilda,
thank you. Yeah,
so is it safe to say, Martha, or Bill, that the CLA is, I don't wanna say the difference, but it's based on if our house sells for more than it's appraised for, then the CLA goes down. If our houses sell for less than they're appraised for, then they go up. So if it looks like, in general, all the houses are selling for a lot more than
They're assessed.
their assessed value, the CLA goes down because it looks like and our taxes go up because it looks like we're really rich.
Yep.
But if they are selling for a lot less than their assessed value, the CLA goes up because it looks like we're a lot poorer than our assessed value.
You've got it.
okay, thank you. Any more questions for the budget information? Yes, sir.
On the, I'm not sure if there's a page number on here. It talks about the summary of expenditures for FY25 proposed budget.
Yes,
I'm just trying to figure out what I was looking at. You got FY23, FY24 adopted budget, FY24 working budget, and FY25 proposed budget. So with where I'm seeing the numbers under the FY23 actual expenditures, that's what actually came in at the end of that year.
yes,
And then if I look at the next column over, this is what we budgeted for 24.
yeah.
But the next column over is only what we spent so far.
No, so when we put together a budget, we're putting it together a year and a half before we actually are starting our year. And as the year goes through, as we're going through the year, we need to move monies between different areas. And so the working budget is just showing where we're transferring funds from one budget area to a different budget area.
Maybe if we go across a line,
Yeah,
let's do the pre-K that's at the top.
Yeah,
right?
so
And just
pre-K.
kinda explain that.
the actual expense came in at 1.2 million. When we were building the FY24 budget and it was adopted by the board, we were requesting 1.6 million. Currently, right now, I've adjusted it down to 1.3 million based on the need to have the cost showing up in the pre-K kindergarten area for special education, which is on the second page. If you look at the second page on the very top line, you'll see that the pre-K kindergarten is increased by to 1.9 million. So it's just moving the monies from one area to another, showing where we actually need the expense.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So, right now, this was our third draft, it's not an action item for tonight. Do we have any requests, anything we need to do to this budget to, I don't know, carve it down a little bit? Do we want to try this out as, pretty much as it is? Because it has to go before the voters, as you all know, and if the voters do not approve the budget, we have to address that with a new budget to go out to vote again. Bill, there was something you were gonna say about this, I think I'm not quite saying it correctly.
Well, I think.
If there's,
Yeah, I can try to help Martha, sorry, not Martha, Nilda. So we had scheduled a meeting next week for education to talk about how the budget is developed. If you need some education for the board members, that was just an education meeting. That wasn't a meeting where you could take any action. And so our next meeting, which is January, I hope I'm counting right, 17th, is a Wednesday, and we need you to adopt the budget that week, because it has to be warned and go to the voters 40 days prior to the vote for town meeting day. And I haven't counted back the 40 days, but I always think of it as the Friday of that week.
Yes, it is the Friday.
It is the Friday of that week, it's actually the Friday of that week.
Yeah.
So we have to have an adopted budget to go to and we have a warning that we're gonna look at under the new budget that has to be adopted that meeting as well. So I don't know what the sentiments are of the board, if the board needs more think time, more discussion time, it's fine where we're at. I'm not trying to push us either way, I just wanna respect the time for the board to think about and make a decision, is this what we're going with? And if it is, great, if it isn't, great, tell us what you'd like us to do, just as you're asking, Hilda, what other information do people need to be able to make a decision? Because on the 17th, we're gonna need to have a budget of some point so we can get the warning out to the voters.
Right. Yes,
So I guess my question would be having an idea of like, if we would have to, in order to make any impact on the tax rate, we'd have to cut our budget down to 5%, less than 5%. So what would that look like in terms of knowing that, is it 80% of our budget is staffing?
Yeah, about 80%.
What would that look like in terms of teachers, staff, educators? You know, what would that look like in terms of how much would we have to cut?
Did you give a number at the last meeting?
I did, but that number has increased quite a bit because of the CLA. That was pre-CLA changes.
Okay, so the number is higher than the 20 odd.
Yeah, I said about 22 to 30, somewhere in that range, but I said 22 on the low side.
I think didn't you say it was 7 million to do that?
Well, I was throwing out a guess, but let me just take 2 seconds and put in a
I'd
figure.
rather have her not guess, yeah.
Yeah, in a
She'll do
spreadsheet here, see if I can come up with something that might make sense.
What I said at the last meeting when Martha was doing that, about 75% of our budget is staffing. So if we reduce the 3 million and say, reduce 3 million, take 75% of that, that was about $2.25 million. And then I divided it by $100,000, because it's about our average expense. It's $104,000, is our average expense.
And that
For certified.
benefits as well.
Yeah. 104,000 is our average.
So, just rough numbers, just so that you have rough ideas here. To get to the tax rate that is at the cap, so it'd be at the $1.43, we would need to cut 3.5 million out of this budget, just to get us to the cap rate. So that still does not affect any of the tax rates that you see on your spreadsheet. You still have the,
So you need
32
100,000, unless my math is off, that would be basically 35 positions just
If
eliminated.
it were straight staffing.
straight staffing.
That doesn't mean we wouldn't go other places, we could go other places.
Yeah. we'll go other places.
But we wouldn't be able to get that kind of money without touching staff. There's just no way.
I have a question for the board. Would it be helpful to have Martha put together a table or whatever you want to call it as like a conversion table so that we know what the math you just did, Martha, that we know that for several different amounts and we could figure that out, because I know you're good at what you're doing, but I wish that we could have sort of a rule of thumb in our head where we knew X means this much money, a teacher means this, a paraeducator means this, just so we can put some sense around it. I know the numbers are high to get under 5%, but I think it's important for us to look at that so we have a really good handle of what we're doing. Does anyone agree with me?
Yes,
Who said yes?
I did.
Thank you. I mean, I think, I don't want to cause work for nothing, though. I want to make sure that you guys would use this as a sort of a cheat sheet to figure things out.
We talked last time about, we had also talked about understanding the positions that have not been filled. And looking at them in terms of, budgetary items.
Right.
So where are we at with that?
It's about, as I said at the last meeting, it's about $1.6 million worth of positions that are open right now. That would be some of the first things I would look at.
1.6.
6 million, yeah. That'd be, I mean, for me personally, but I wanna do this work with the leadership team and the staff, but that would be some of the first places I would look.
And when you're looking at the academic and behavior intervention, because that one is potential for $2 million increase, are those all positions? And are they all new positions that we had to sub-fill because of ESSER money?
So just so that you know, these are not just position costs.
That's why I asked.
Yes, yeah, no, academic and behavior, every single one of these categories does not mean just staffing costs. There are other costs included in there, supplies and, other expenses.
Right, that one.
I think we're now.
And direct instruction are, two of the highest,
The bulk of
increases.
the cost in those different areas is salary and benefits, yes, but it's not just salary and benefit costs.
Yeah, I mean, I think I gave you at the last meeting, pie chart on where our HR positions are in these different, budget categories, like how many positions is that within each one? I can bring that back,
Right, we didn't get, a clearer understanding as to what positions are new positions versus what are positions that,
Nothing's new in this
There's
budget.
no new position.
There's no new positions.
positions that we have to put into our budget now because the ESSER money
We
ran
are
out.
not doing that. We did that last year. There are a bunch of ESSER positions that we have not put back in this budget that will be eliminated this year. And then there are, the only place that wasn't accounted for in the budget that is in here as positions are the ones with our Lighthouse program.
Okay, and so that's where the academic and behavior lighthouse is under there. So that's why I'm just wondering, what is the $2 million increase?
But that's not due to that. Not due to that. And it's really it's really not 2 million, it's adopted budget of 4.2 to 5.3, so it's a 1.1 million. You're looking at the year before the actual expense in FY '23.
Yeah,
And so if you do FY '24, which is this year's budget of 4.2 to 5.3,
okay.
that's a 1.1.
Right, but what we really spent was 3.4.
That was 2 years ago.
We
This
brought in
year
those.
we're like, and we brought in a bunch of positions, the board elected to bring in
Right.
many
In
positions
FY
that were in there in that FY
So-
'24 budget.
Okay, so that's what it is. So it's the positions that we added last year that were not going to be continued by ESSER money.
Yep.
Okay, that's the
Yep.
question I'm asking.
Okay, so as far as the January 10th meeting, we have a sort of a question out there as to whether or not it's the pleasure of the board to meet again and look at this budget again. I'm in favor certainly of meeting again and looking at the budget again. I think it's our responsibility to try to get us familiar with all of this as we can, and that would just be a step closer to that. But it's another night, we already have that night planned though for an educational session, so are you folks interested in doing that on January 10th?
What's the
Please
question?
don't all speak at once.
Yeah, so what's the question? The question is, are we interested in coming together for an educational session on January 10th?
No, the question is, are we interested in coming together as a warm meeting on January 10th to look at the budget?
To actually discuss
Again.
it.
To actually discuss the budget.
Okay.
Because otherwise it would just be information, it wouldn't be any discussion about what you wanna do with the
What
budget.
you want to do with the budget. You can only have that discussion about what you want to do with the budget in a public session. In an education
Yeah.
session, all we do is tell you how the budget was built and explain any questions, like what does this mean?
Right.
We can't talk, you can't have a discussion about what you'd like to do with the budget.
Okay. Can't give us direction.
Right.
And we would invite the public in to listen to all of this.
Yes.
Yeah,
So that they also have
the public, that way they can't say that, hey.
Yeah.
You were involved.
Right.
I'm in favor of,
So, sorry,
I think that this is sticker shock, and I think the more information that we can get out to the public now, even if the numbers aren't solid, which is education around CLA and what that really means, and, you know, the more education we get to the public now, because it's taken me how many years to start figuring some of this stuff out now, you know, like, I think we need as much education to the public as we can.
so that's great, but that does not preclude a meeting on January 10th, correct?
No, not at all. Like, I think that, you know, they can be obviously not necessarily part of the discussion, but just even able to listen to all of this, which hopefully they're listening tonight as well. You know, I think the more education we get out there, the better. Charlie, you were gonna say something?
I'm just, so are we talking about inviting the public to the educational session or having a
Board meeting,
board meeting to discuss the budget
and
more to
hopefully.
the public?
Yeah, I think Gilda's question is, should we change the meeting from an educational meeting for the board to an actual board meeting where the board can make a motion?
No motion necessarily, a discussion. You could.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
Right, so Neil's question, to repeat it, was, right now, we have scheduled a January 10th educational session. In view of the information we received tonight, I'm suggesting, along with a couple others here in the room, that we have the January 10th meeting be a warned meeting, that's a regular meeting of the school board, and we have on the agenda discussion of the budget. And that way we can get more details, more information, and like Susan said, maybe there'll be more public that's listening to it. Maybe it'll help inform us more. And, you know, we will have the education session, but, you know, doesn't necessarily, that was gonna be education about budgeting anyway, right? Is that your call?
Yes.
All right, what's your flavor? January 10th meeting?
Charlie has his hand.
Strong vote, stick your hand up if you want to meet. I think I have a majority,
Yeah.
so I think it's, bucket Aaron.
Charlie had his hand up, I don't know if he,
oh, it's kind of passed down. I was gonna say that I personally could do more with education because I don't think that my opinion on the budget has changed over the last 2 weeks. Like the numbers have changed slightly, but I still don't see that we are in a position, like bearing in mind that 5% cap, which is kind of a godsend considering how high taxes would go otherwise. The only way that we, unless there's some magic way of slashing the heck out of the budget without laying off a ton of people, I think our best bet is probably to roll with this and use the cap and then plan out the next few years and hope that we can bring the numbers in line in the future. I'm all for having a meeting where, you know, for the purpose of educating the public. I just don't know that there's going to be a lot that would change my personal opinion on where we stand as far as the budget goes.
So to sort of second what Charlie is saying, years ago, our budget presentation, if we slashed the budget, made a direct impact on our current tax rate for our towns. But in today's world, it's sort of a state issue. And we would make a very small effect on the tax rate. You tell me, Bill, if I'm wrong, or Martha, but it's not a direct, our percentage increase in the budget does not immediately go right to our local budgets, local tax rates. And it's a statewide formula that they made very complicated. So I'm inclined, my own personal feeling, since that's the way it is, I don't want to help cut the budget for Essex or Stowe or Montpelier or whatever. It's more what do our kids need and what do we want our educational system to be for us. And I realize there's folks in the public who have a right to have their opinion about school budgets and town budgets and that kind of thing. But they often are folks who, if they became board members, would learn right away that it's not as easy as they think. You know, it looks simple out there. Cut the budget, cut people, do this, saw the building in half, whatever. And it's just not an easy thing. It's not really like that. So my own opinion is present the budget on what we need for kids. And if the local folks have supported our budgets, have supported the schools, and we have to have faith in them. They have to have faith in us that we're doing the best we can to provide the best education for kids and be wise about our spending and so forth. But we don't have as much control as people think, is the point I'm trying to make. And it becomes a statewide school funding issue. And I don't want to hurt our kids and really not affect our own local tax rate that much. So.
Great. Okay, Jack, thank you. I can go either way about January 10th. I would like to get the pleasure of the board. Do you want to just keep going the way we've got it, or do we want an opportunity to look at things more closely? Yes, Susan.
So I guess I still have questions because I do think it's important. You know, when I look at the estimated, what we've estimated for Fairfield, the taxes going up by like, 22, 23%, 24%. I think that I would love to have some more questions, like those questions that I asked earlier about what does it mean if we were to cut. I believe that we need to, think about the children first, the young adults, the students first, and we need to do what's best for them. And we also need to have a plan in place. What would it look like if our budget doesn't pass?
Right.
Because
Okay.
that's my.
Okay. So, this isn't a voting item. This is just the pleasure of the board, doing our due diligence the best we can. I said, book 'em, Aaron. Do I have to retract that now, or what?
Are we gonna just have this be our agenda item? Will there
Yeah,
be
just
any
one.
more agenda items? Because I don't really see what the large difference is.
I think you're just gonna have one agenda item for
Yeah.
the budget, and that's what it would be on the
Yeah.
10th, and we just have a board meeting on that. And I think you got the pleasure of the board, Nilda, with, to have that meeting on the 10th.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
we
thank
got an
you.
assignment to
Thank
create a
you.
table of what different cuts levels are, and we'll do that. I was just making some notes, and I know Martha and Bree did too, so we'll get you something.
Thank you so much.
I have a
Appreciate it.
I have
I appreciate the board supporting that.
a quick procedural
Moving
question.
on,
Uh,
the next,
Just a quick procedural question. If, you know, so next week we're gonna meet and talk about the budget. Is there any way to like loosen up the public comments a bit under the usual thinking that the public will show up and ask questions?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's something for the chairs to.
Yeah, I think we
Should I
should do
email
that.
you guys with the,
Well, we do have an open meeting.
let's
for the
talk
public.
about that later.
We do have a budget presentation meeting with the public
okay.
before, so, you know, before town meeting day, so the public does have an opportunity to ask questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
And this is just another opportunity. So
Right,
I don't know that we
yeah.
have to loosen anything up, because if people wanna come, they can come and they can ask questions.
Right.
So, and, you know, maybe we could have a board out with, you know, markers on it and invite people to ask questions and, you know, write it on the board.
I've been
If
upset
questions
because
came
there aren't
in
enough
afterwards.
people that come. I mean, it's sort
Well,
of the opposite.
We have to
I agree.
believe that this is going to
Okay.
possibly invite more people to come.
Okay, now we're trying to get into everybody's head and figure out what they're gonna do. So, I would like to move on, please. We're gonna go to old business D. And this is an action item, so I'm gonna request, a motion before we go forward. So I need a motion to recommend, I need a motion to approve the early retirement request of the two teachers, Mary Burlap and Chambers Hill, and as recommended by the administration. May I have that motion, please?
Motion, yes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Now we have discussion about the early retirement request. You have in your packet the two letters. You should have in your packet the side letter addressing the early retirement. I think you have some numbers related to how many persons have taken advantage of the program in the past. And I think that's almost everything that's in there about that. Discussion?
So I have a question about the side letter. So in the first paragraph, I guess, can you explain to everyone the collective bargaining agreement between them is July of 23 and June 30th of 26, but it sunsets on the 24th.
Right, so that is referring to the actual contract, which is a 3-year contract. The agreement that we have right now is 3 years long, so it's telling you that that's the contract we're referring to. But this actual side letter dies at the end of June of 24.
This side letter, just to give you some more context, Amanda, has been agreed on for many years. It hasn't gotten into the contract. And so the side letters are usually renewed every year.
So the next line
Or
under the condition noted herein, 8 professional staff each school year may be granted an early retirement benefit. Additional teachers may be considered at the discretion of the board, but is that by October 1st deadline?
I believe it is by what says in the next paragraph, it's by October 1st of the school year, full-time professional staff.
Yeah.
By 20 years or more.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
With that.
So, we talked about this last week at a typo actually. So we brought it forward again, and because I think a tie is no action. So, I can tell you how I feel about it, the same way I felt last time. And I think they missed the deadline. The deadline was published. It's not a new side letter. It's been around forever. We haven't changed the language in it except for update the years that were affected. My understanding is there was even some communication that went out that said, you know, you're getting close to your deadline for if you're interested in this. So, and I understand that at least for one of these persons, there was a bit of an extenuating circumstance, but it wasn't an emergency circumstance. You know, it was something that just was a preference for her to get those numbers in place before we approve. So that's my 2 cents, and we can all have our opinions on this. I think for me, having been a school board member this long, I think if we deter from the contract, we're creating a path, you know, that we don't wanna go down. And you know, the other thing is we're not looking to save money on teachers right now, right?
I'm just curious, looking at the chart from last year, there was a teacher approved on January 27th, 2023. Were there extenuating circumstances where the board made that decision?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't remember the answer. Bill, do you remember?
I don't
What was
remember the
going on?
answer, but there have been some years that the board has approved after 2023. Aaron, you have something you remember?
It was the position that got ripped. So
Oh,
that
okay.
position was something that she could not return to
Okay,
up at BFA, so her position was eliminated
okay.
on that date, or she was told on that date.
Yeah.
And that's when she said, then I would like to retire then, because I
But there's been more than just that year that the board has gone past the October.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, Aaron.
That is a satisfactory answer, Jeff?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Any other comments? Yes, Jeff?
I voted no at the last meeting, but I realize there's an advantage to the board financially. Early retirements do almost always give the board some financial relief because a more veteran teacher takes early retirement and the replacement is most often, it's not always, but most often a newer teacher and often a person who's not taking as much benefits as a more veteran teacher.
Yeah.
Like a
Thank
single
you.
plan instead of a family plan. So my opinion is, if we did grant it, to stipulate that it's not precedent setting in the letter to the person, and to the association, this is not precedent setting. So that the board every year has the ability to judge yes or no on this kind of thing.
Thank you. Dave, I think you had your hand up too.
I was one of the 4.5 no votes the last time. Right after the meeting, I was approached by one of the board members that I really respect, and she said that one of the last things we want to do is to put a disgruntled teacher into a classroom. It's not healthy for the kids, and it's not healthy for the teacher. So I think that's a really good point. My question is, how rogue can a teacher go in 6 months that could cause, I mean, are there any guardrails out there to prevent some teacher from going rogue?
I mean,
What was the last part of your question, please?
Well, I'm just curious if you know, we denied one of these people, and they continued to teach, but they become disgruntled because they didn't get what they wanted.
Right.
If they do become disgruntled, could they have an effect on the classroom? And what guardrails do we have to control that?
Well, I don't know, but I guess I'm thinking, sorry, no, that it's the same guardrails that would be in place for any teacher, any staff member, any employee that would be disgruntled, whether or not they were offered early
Right.
retirement.
Right, and if one of those persons were to break the contract, then we do have language that we fine them. And it comes out of their, I think it says next paycheck that they're gonna get.
I think,
That's still in there, right?
no, we removed that from the contract. That's removed. We moved
Oh,
that from the contract.
I'm sorry, I missed that, I wasn't around for that. Anyone else?
Well,
I have one more question if I could, or one more thought.
Oh, okay.
Teachers go.
Aaron, you gotta expand my view, please. Thank you.
Teachers have, they go into their classroom every day, most every day, and pass out assignments. And those assignments usually carry a delivery date that they're expecting their students to do. And if they don't come in on that date, then the teacher's either gonna give them a failure or an incomplete, giving them a chance to make it up, but they're gonna discount that grade at the end of the day. So I'm saying if these teachers have been doing this for, I can't remember, one was 13 years, one was 20 years, 30 years, they've been passing out an awful lot of assignments, expecting a due date. They need to follow their own rules, in my opinion.
It's another one.
Anyone else have any commentary to make?
Yeah, just a couple responses. I mean, generally, teachers have deadlines, but like other deadlines, those extenuating circumstances, they will often make an exception. But regarding the idea of teachers going wrong, I don't think, I wouldn't expect, these are two teachers who have about 20 years of experience each, and I wouldn't expect them to go rogue or do anything intentionally harmful. I don't think that's gonna happen. I would think that there's probably a risk of general burnout that teachers face, and I wouldn't expect them to be like, I need to get my way, so the students are gonna pay. They're professionals and they care about the kids. They're not gonna do that. It would be another thing on top of the mountain of issues that teachers already face that I could see a decrease in performance just based on general burnout because of the teaching profession. But maybe it's, generally I have faith in our teachers not to do something intentionally harmful.
Refer to them as professionals.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One last,
Joe, sorry. Aaron's got to end the viewer. I can't see him raising their hands. Go ahead.
Can you expand the view?
Time we voted together, can we vote separately for each individual asking, or does it have to be a combined all or nothing?
You could modify the motion if you wanted to.
We could take them individual, yes. It's just because they're the same topic, they got lumped together, but I think in your packet, they're individualized as far as letters go.
I feel like one person has a better letter, or it seems like one person has reading through. They seem a little different in how they were presented.
Right. I don't know, it feels like it could be doable, but it also feels like it could be kind of not really a good process, but I think Joe got you first, Susan, so.
I just think that with the state of education and how intensified behaviors and issues are within school buildings, that if a teacher is asking to go, that I can't imagine they came to that decision very quickly or easily. And I think that if they are admitting and asking for a release of their contract, that we should grant it to them as people, as respectful humans, and as looking out for the students in our schools. They're ready to go, and we haven't had a regular, few years. And I think that is a pretty large extenuating circumstance. And I think we should just grant it. And I would further say, let's talk about that October 1st date. Certainly we don't want it coming in June 15th, but October 1st is, I think, pretty early at the same time. So I just think that we need to give people the benefit of the doubt, and we need to, assume best intentions. And if people are saying after 30 years of working in a position that they're ready to go, then we need to trust that they're ready to go and let them.
Thanks, Joe. Susan.
So, just one clarifying thing, we're not releasing them from their contract. we're giving them an early retirement and they won't be signing a contract for next
For
year.
next year, right,
Yeah.
we have a whole year to find somebody else.
And, after, thinking about this for the last week, I agree that if, a teacher's asking for early retirement, that, there's a reason for that, just as you were saying, Joe. And then also, certainly looking at the fiscal picture we're in right now, that also kind of plays into my decision. It's changed somewhat since last week, so that's all I'm gonna say.
Thanks, yep. So, just to add, I respect everything everyone has said tonight. I just wanted to add one more little thing, and that is, I've been many times on the negotiating committee for negotiating these contracts, and therefore I have learned the respect of the contract, okay? The contract is exactly that, a contract. So therefore, that's my position. That has nothing to do with whether I think these people are wonderful people, has nothing to do with whether I think a teacher who is ready to go should be let go or let go or whatever. It has to do, for me, specifically for the contract. Thank you.
And just to rebut that, I will say that you have to think about what is the goal. And the goal is not always to follow contracts for me, right? We're school board members and the goal is to make sure that we're doing best for kids.
Okay, thank you. Yes,
Can we allow the person still to take the early retirement, but not have the severance package? Severance payment, I mean, can you separate those two?
Well, it just,
I was
They just
saying.
sign the contract for next year.
Excuse me?
They just wouldn't sign the contract for next year.
Correct.
right,
They can
But that's
do that.
their
right. They go
Their
through,
choice.
both of those things go hand in hand
They're
according
basically
to this side ladder.
It's just understanding.
and just for clarification on that, what we're voting on isn't to allow them to retire, but to give them the benefit, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
To allow for early retirement.
Yes.
Right,
I still have one
and all the benefits that go with that, yes, Charlie, for sure.
more.
Okay, are we ready to take a vote or does someone
Can I
else?
do it?
Oh, okay.
Never mind. I withdraw my question.
Are you sure, David?
No, I can't remember it, so.
Okay. He's sure.
Okay, anyone else? I don't want to stop the discussion if someone has something to bring up that hasn't been brought up or whatever. But if I don't hear anybody jumping to do that, I'm gonna take a vote. And the vote needs to be by roll call. So the vote is the motion is to, Erin, can you read me the motion, please?
To approve the early retirement request for Mary Brulette and James Hill.
Yeah. I think that is implied on that all the benefits and whatever of the side letter are in place. Do you agree with that, Bill, or should we add that? Should we
I
request it
agree
from
with
me?
that. I agree that's implied with what the request of the letters are.
Okay, that's what I thought too, but somebody brought something up that made me think that might not be the case. Okay, everybody understand the motion, or we're gonna vote? Amanda,
No.
Charles,
Yes.
David,
No.
Jack,
Yes?
Jessica,
Yes.
Joanna,
Yes.
Carly,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Suzanne.
Yes.
Okay, and Melissa's a no. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yeses, depending on the half thing, and 1, 2, 3 no's. So the ayes have it. She is granted, they're both granted their early retirement request. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is new business, and I am so pleased to turn this over to Susan.
So, item 8A, we need to set a date for an informational meeting per 17 VSA within 10 days preceding the town meeting. So I'm just trying to figure out what that 10 days is, looking on my calendar.
I will give you that. I believe it is the 26th, if I'm counting right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10.
26th of January, obviously, right?
24th, the 24th of February is 10 days, but usually, you know, the next business day is the 26th of February. I'm getting nods so that I can count.
And there's usually a school break that occurs, right?
That is the,
Right?
that is the school, that is the February break. So we have to have the meeting somewhere after the 24th and before the 5th. And usually you've had it the Wednesday, which would be the 28th. And that's been our pattern, but doesn't.
All right. So I'm gonna make a motion to set the informational budget meeting on Wednesday, February 28th, 2024. Any discussion?
I will be out of town.
Second? Okay.
Oh,
Is there a
so
second?
vacation.
Those kids get too many vacations.
No, it's just like,
It's so, second,
rushing
okay,
it.
Carly second that motion. All right, so what's the discussion?
Can I just give a point
Yeah.
that we've never had the full board there, it's usually just the chair and a few others
Yeah.
and staff, so.
And this is open for the public?
It's open to the public, it's
Can we-
required by statute.
Is it,
This is the meeting that Jack mentioned about presenting the budget to the law.
Yeah.
Right, but doesn't mean you can't, you can have others, and you have.
could we
But-
provide childcare at that meeting to give as
We
many
have.
people? Great. I love
In the
that.
past, we have.
I would love to do that again, to get as many people in. Like, that is an obstacle in our household, it's
Yeah.
childcare.
I will tell you, our attendance usually is 1 or 2 people.
Where is this meeting usually held?
Usually we've done it at BFA in the library.
And how do you let people know
We had the
about
past,
I was gonna say last year, didn't we?
last year we might have done it here.
We've done it here.
We posted, it actually has to go on the warning, then you're gonna see a draft of the warning of when it is, it goes in our school district report that will be coming out later this month, beginning of February. Put
Hopeful,
out through the paper,
if we're out in the community in the next few weeks, we can get more people to come. That was one of the
Yeah.
board goals,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Is to
Love to have more
really
people.
promote this as well.
so I'm all for it.
Okay, so the motion is.
What time did you say?
Am I just too ambitious on this?
Oh.
I want hundreds.
Do we usually have it at 6 p.m.?
We usually have it at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm just scoring Carly for the years that. they
Yeah.
were community
I think
schools,
maybe
so-
COVID also has affected that in the past.
Yeah.
That maybe a thought.
We could have,
Yeah.
maybe we could have some satellite, options if people
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
to be in Fairfield, you know,
Yeah.
some of our, people may not wanna drive at night or
Right,
whatnot,
yeah.
so you could have it available.
We will do it by Zoom, and we've done
You
it
will.
by Zoom,
Do it.
just like we do these things.
Okay,
Could you have like a Zoom viewing
right,
at
like you could have
Fairfield
it at the school
school?
or
Or
something.
like you have separate locations all watching the same meeting?
The issue will be staffing that,
Mhm.
because of having those buildings open and needing people there to,
Especially during school break.
during school break, so.
Right.
I don't,
Plus, those communities are all commingled, so I don't know the effect of doing that in each community.
Then we should just have it in Fairfield then.
Can you get 100 people?
Right, Nilda?
I didn't hear quite the whole thing.
We should just have it in Fairfield then.
Okay,
I don't believe.
you guys are funny. I'm sorry I spoke up without being recognized, I'm just so used to it tonight, so.
Oh, I just heard him. Charlie.
I don't believe it would work out logistically, but just checking, would it be possible to have some sort of catering or some food there to help lure people in?
I'm sure I would, but I
keep thinking about the budget.
Well, that's the thing, is I don't know that we have the money or B, have even an estimate of how many people we might be able to bring in,
Yeah.
so. I just thought I'd throw it out there just in case.
All right. Joe, you were gonna say something? No, I thought your hand was up. All right. Are we ready to take a vote? All right, so the motion is to hold the informational meeting per 17 VSA within 10 days preceding town meeting. The motion is to set the informational budget meeting to 6 p.m. Wednesday, June 28th. June? No, not like
February.
February 28th. I'm going away, June 28th.
Yeah, Judy, you go there.
It's gonna be a fun weekend. February 28th at 6 p.m. So I'm gonna take a
Held
roll.
where? Held where?
Held here. No, is it better?
Well, we could try here. We'll see this year.
That's where we
What
did
about-
it last year.
Yeah, we
It
did
looked like
last
a lot
year.
more people.
Okay, it's gonna be held here. I was just thinking about daycare. If we held it at the library,
No, there's an early childhood program right there. I mean, if you really had it,
Would you like it at
there's
BFA?
a room right there.
We can do it at BFA.
let's do it at BFA,
Okay.
because if we're suggesting that we try and drum up some childcare, then we could be having the meeting in one part of the library and then
Cafeteria.
Games and.
games in the far corner.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna take Nilda.
I just wanted to point out, one of the concerns about having it at BFA is we've had them there in the past, even before the merger. And often, the meeting's at 6 o'clock, and by 6:05, no one's there, we do the presentation or whatever, ends about 6:30, 6:45, and then people wander in and say, we've been looking for this place for an hour, you know? So that's a problem, because it's a big location. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think if it was in the office here, it would be overrun, but you never know.
No, I think we'll be fine with the way we've been putting up signage for community events at BFA. We've done a much better job of making sure people know where to go and how to get there.
Okay,
And it's right.
okay, good.
Maybe we could enlist some of our student representatives to help guide people.
If they're around.
If they're around.
If they're around. Vacation.
All right.
If they're around.
So I'm gonna take a vote. Nilda,
Yes,
Jack,
Yes.
Amanda,
Yes.
Joanna,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
Susan is a yes, Carly,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Suzanne.
Yes.
All right, so that motion is, put through. All right, next action item, is the FY 25 tuition rates. This is an action item. The proposed tuition rates are on the second page of the third draft. I saw them in here. So the administration, I'm gonna recommend a motion to set the FY 25 annual tuition rate for MRUSD non-resident students as follows. Grades kindergarten through 6 at $14,500, grades 7 through 12 at $18,300, and Northwest Career and Technical Center at $13,900. Would someone be willing to second? Thank you, Amanda. Any discussion? All right, then Charlie.
Just revisiting something that was said during the budget thing, the 14,500 for grades K through 6, that's not, you had meant, Martha, you mentioned, that's not an amount that we actually charge, that's basically something that we give to the state.
No, it's not anything we give to the state. We have to announce a tuition rate for these three areas. And the reason it's 14,300 compared to what we had before, which was 11,500, is I hadn't updated the amount in quite a few years because we don't actually receive any students tuitioning in for kindergarten through the 6th grade.
Okay.
But we do have to set a rate.
So it's not just a $3,000 jump happening overnight?
No,
It's something
no.
that just happened to update?
No, and basically I set these rates based on what we received as the FY 23, which is the year we just finished, the allowable tuition rate we could have charged for 23. That's what I use to base these numbers on, so I kind of have an idea of where we land. Yes.
And we actually have had students at Fairfield tuition in, from like
From a-
Fairfax and.
Usually it's a individual that pays for it, which is.
Right, but you just have to have the rate, is all I'm
You
saying.
have to have the rate, yes.
It's a rare circumstance.
It's very
Sure.
rare, it's very rare,
Yeah.
yes, it happens occasionally.
Any other discussion? All right, so I'm gonna take a vote. Nilda,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Amanda,
Yes.
Joanna,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
Susan is a yes, Carly,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Suzanne.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Moving on, this is also an action item, and it's in regards to high school choice numbers. Last year, the high school choice numbers were approved at 40 students going out and 35 coming in. The administration recommends a motion setting the fiscal year 2025 high school choice numbers as 40 students going out and 35 students coming in. So I'm gonna make that motion if someone would second it.
I'll second.
Thank you, Suzanne. Any discussion?
How do we arrive at, sorry,
Charlie, I mean David, sorry.
how do we arrive at those numbers?
Good question. We have to set a minimum of how many can go out, and at a certain size, we actually, I think it's above like 300 or 400 students. We cap out, you cap out for a certain size of the high school. It's proportional until, I wanna say, 300 or 400 students for total high school population, and then it's 10 per grade. So that's how we get to the 40 that can go out. That come in, we've really looked at our history of what we've had for folks coming in. 5 years ago when I came to the district, I think the number was around 28. We've upped it a little bit every year. I think last year we probably had 5 or 6 students still left on the wait list that didn't get in, that wanted to come in. We do not get, there aren't any dollars that follow these students. So kids that come in through the high school choice program in Vermont, which is different than tuition. So it's not the same as when Georgia or Sheldon or Albert don't operate a high school. We can charge money for those. These are ones that they might reside, let's say, in Enosburg, and Enosburg has a high school. They can get into the lottery system for choice. And so we upped it a little bit. 35 seems to be a sweet spot. We were there last year and maybe the year before. We've been right around this number, and we might have, I think the highest wait list is where we are right now, around 5 or 6. But most of the kids have gotten it. So.
Is it a lottery?
It's a lottery, yes. It's a total lottery. And we've had, this past year, we had some kids that declined it after they were awarded a spot. And so then we went down to the next student. And that's how.
Is that a yearly?
It's a yearly lottery for new students entering. Once you're in, you can stay into graduation.
Oh, okay, that's.
Yeah. And so what we do is we say there's 35 spots. Let's say there's 8 seniors graduating. So then there would be 8 spots up for this year. So that's a total of 35, but once you're in, you stay in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Charlie, did you have something?
I was just hoping someone would give me a Cliff Notes version of what the high school choice program is.
Did you get enough for me? Did I give enough? Or?
I think I got a general idea. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All right, so I'm gonna take a vote. So the vote is to set the fiscal year 25 high school choice numbers as 40 students going out and 35 students coming in. Nilda?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
Joanna? Yes. Charlie?
Yes.
Susan is a yes. Carly?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Thank you. So, the next item is not an action item, it's just really, for your information, and it's the attachment 8D about what the warning is gonna look like, if I can pull mine up. And this is the warning for the, annual meeting to discuss this is the warning that's going into the town reports, basically.
And it's what you will see on the ballot.
Those you'll see on the ballot.
You'll see on the
And
ballot.
there's some notes here commented. Aaron did a really nice job, so you can see the different positions to where they are on there. Because we have some folks, some of you were appointed during the year.
Okay. So if you have any questions about that, you can give back to one of us.
I'll take them.
Bill?
Yeah.
All right. The next item is 8E, it's an unpaid leave request. And the administration recommends a motion to approve the unpaid leave request by Robert Buckwalter as presented. So I'm gonna make that motion if someone would second it. Thank you, David. Any discussion?
I would just say we support it as an administration.
All right, I think we're ready to take a vote. So Nilda?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
Joanna?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes.
Susan is a yes. Carly?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
And Suzanne?
Yes.
Thank you very much. We went through that pretty quickly. Other business, this is an action item. The administration recommends a motion to approve the warrants, acknowledging that passage of this motion will act as authorization and signature of any individual board members participating remotely. So I'm gonna make that motion if someone would second it.
I'll second.
Thank you,
I'll
Jack.
second it.
Thank you, Nilda. Any discussion? I'm gonna take the vote. Nilda?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
Joanna?
Yes.
Shirley?
Yes.
Susan? Yes. Jessica?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Yes.
All right. Oh, I didn't?
Yes.
Thank you, Carly. How did I miss you? You're right. Got ahead of myself. All right. Other business, the superintendent's report.
I have like 2 or 3 brief things. Not much has really happened since it's really been 4 school days since we met last. One thing I want to let you know is that the superintendents across Champlain Valley, one of the things we've been noticing, we've talked to you about staffing concerns. When we have school out at one of the districts and it's in another, it causes great strain on our staff. To the degree, especially with those with young children that might go to another district and we're open and they're closed, they need to stay home and therefore our staff is reducing the strain on the buildings. Therefore, the superintendents across Champlain Valley are working. We've always coordinated our calendars, but we're talking about, and we'll see more, we're gonna work on it this month. But I wanted to forewarn you that we are gonna have the exact same calendar. We've all pledged to that so far. We'll see how that goes through. That will mean that some of our traditional days that we've either been in session or are not in session will no longer be the same. Because we almost had to shut down 2 of our elementary schools. We wanted to do something to honor the Abenaki and be here and celebrate Abenaki and Native Americans, but so many other schools were off, we could barely operate the schools that day. Well, NVU, and we did it in alignment with NVU and Grand Isle. But it's just, the interstate is used so much for our staff to come up and down from other districts. And others are seeing the same thing. Milton can tell you the same story about when we're off and they're in session, or Colchester. It's happening to all of us. So we're having to say we're gonna have to have the exact same calendar. I will need help from this board because there will be some folks in the community say, we've always traditionally done X. We may not be able to do X anymore. Because it's just getting to the point where we can barely run school. We're already having problems with staffing for just illness and other things that come up. So we're gonna see the fruit, we'll see the what happens with that. We're having that conversation this month. Well, I'll be bringing that back to you after we do that work. But it's gonna have to be, it's one that's gonna be further out of our hands. It would be great, in my opinion, if the state made a statewide calendar and said that's what it is. We put too much energy that, Jack, you probably remember this when you were superintendent, put so much energy into filling out a calendar, and it really doesn't change much, and it's outside of our hands. So.
Is that going to impact, like, say, let's say Burlington is getting pounded with, snow, but it's passing by.
I'm not talking about snow days, I'm talking about
the school calendar.
The school calendar, yeah.
Because staff members stay home with their kids.
Yeah, so some need to stay home with their kids, or we're closed and they're a staff member in another district and they gotta stay home with their kids here.
There are full, like vacations that are a week apart.
Right,
Yeah, I mean-
that's definitely going away. Yeah, so we'll be re-calendaring. It's just, we can't operate the schools.
And we started on the 2nd, and I think, Swanton started today.
Yep.
They went back.
Yep.
I was like, "Ooh."
That type of stuff we will be no longer.
Yeah.
Good luck.
It just, we can't. The other thing I'd let you know is, I think I told you this before, but if I hadn't, I wanna make sure I updated you. We're part of a class action suit on PCB litigation against Monsanto. Some of our buildings have seen the reps in, and the city, school and, Fairfield have seen reps from Monsanto in when they were doing the testing. It's put a lot of extra work on our facilities directors, and I wanna thank them for the work. There's a lot of documentation that's going on. We still haven't seen results for BFA or for town school yet. We have, as I told you in the past, we have seen results for city and Fairfield, and they're minor. They're outside of student access areas, so we've been able to contain them, but we'll be doing that work this summer. And then the design committee for the strategic plan, EHA, is meeting next Tuesday at SATEC, so at 6 o'clock. So just wanted to remind all of you that are part of that, and if you're not and want to be there, please come. We'll get reminders out this week. That's what I have.
Alrighty, board announcements? Anyone?
I have a question.
Is it an announcement?
It's an announcement.
Okay, good. Make it into an announcement.
I would like to attend some of the classes at the schools, and I didn't know if that is encouraged. Just to sit in the back room and not say anything, but just observe what goes on in the classrooms.
I haven't had that question before. From a board member. So I wanna put some thought into it. I'm not saying no, I'm just saying yes. There's that piece of, you would come in and you're gonna be seen as a board member.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's gonna put a lot of pressure onto a teacher. And, like I said, I want some time to think about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It would be a time-consuming thing, but I would find it valuable for myself.
I understand, I can see the pros of education, of understanding what's going on in school as well, but.
Any other announcements?
I have one. My son is finally back from Ireland.
Yay! When did he get back?
He got back about 10 days ago.
Bring any luck?
No. Not really. Yeah, but he's back.
Well, I guess I do have a real announcement then. We're talking about those things. I have a handicapped daughter and who works up at MVU, and recently she physically got to the point where she couldn't transfer from her car anymore or from her wheelchair to a car and back out, and so she had to put out a leave of absence. So we went to work to see if we could get her a van where she could drive right in, and we got the van.
Wow.
It's not completely equipped yet, so I still drive her back and forth to work every day. It's a change from being retired for 6 years and 7 years and having to get up early every morning, but it's a good adventure. But if anybody has an interest in buying a handicapped wheelchair car, we have them for sale. And if there's somebody that's really in need, we try to make it work for somebody.
That'd be beautiful.
That'd be awesome, just something to put on the front porch for him.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering where I should have it.
Yeah, and like VCIL,
Yeah.
Center for Independent Living.
I put it on Craigslist and Facebook, and I've got the same type of letters from everybody that they're gonna buy the car. They're gonna send me extra money so I can pay for them to move it to another location, and they're gonna send me a certified check. And if you ever get one of those, it's fake. Because I've had 4 now.
Yeah,
of the letters.
VCIL, it might be a
Yeah.
good. It's called VCIL, Vermont Center for Independent Living.
Yes,
And-
I,
Yeah, you've.
I've already done
Sure.
that, yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Any other announcements? I just,
No,
I'm gonna say, I, just wanted to, you know, after, not to bring up the budget again, but thinking about the, you know, the whole budget is, you know, it really makes me understand that we're really gonna have to be thinking about multi-year budgets and figuring out, you know, because the, percentage increases that we're looking at this year, just aren't sustainable, even if we keep it at 5%. So that's my only 2 cents. All right, and since there is well, I don't think we, agenda, anyone want to put anything else besides the budget on for agenda for future meetings? All right, let us know if you do. And since we have no need for an executive session, the meeting is adjourned at 8:03 PM, January 3rd, 2024.
thank you.
Thank you, Nilda.
Everybody.